Hey guys, my name is Ryan and welcome to Overwatch Central. So if you've paid any attention to subreddits for both r/competitive Overwatch and the normal Overwatch one, there is a lot of posts talking about how the Reaper changes have been more of a nerf than a buff. We're going to go over exactly why, we're going to myth bust a lot of stuff that's been spoken about. A lot of consistencies across not only Reaper but Road Hog too, but for the most part Road Hog is fine. So I've been going into the practice range, testing out the damage done from certain ranges, and also if I'm aiming for the bot's middle eye, so right in the center of its head, or right in the center of its body, so either it's a headshot or a body shot. Some people might say that trying it on bots is pointless because they don't really have the same hitbox as certain heroes, which is a really good point. I do want to go through all of the heroes at some point and see what ones Road Hog or Reaper can do a lot of damage to, but this is more of an explanation one, and it's a little bit different to the video that Stylosa did the other day, so we aren't going over old content here. We won't be talking about Road Hog much, but going off my notes, there is a lot of comparison between Road Hog and Reaper on the live servers at least. On screen I'm showing you a spreadsheet of the damage that I did at all of these ranges. For the most part it's fairly consistent. For example, when trying to headshot a target from 4 meters, can sometimes do it in one shot, but it's very inconsistent. Mostly does it in one, but sometimes in two. It's the same for Reaper, right? You're seeing it on screen. But Road Hog on the PTR can one shot a target when he's 4 meters away, aiming for the head consistently. I did this a few more times after testing and I still couldn't not headshot him, which is the complete opposite to Reaper, who I definitely couldn't get a headshot with. It was always done in 2 shots, even when aiming for the head. Body shot was exactly the same for Reaper and Road Hog consistently too, and the rest of the tests for Road Hog were fairly consistent across live and PTR. There are some clips of Road Hog 2-shotting targets from about a 10-meter range, but from the areas that we were shooting to and shooting from, so for example the lines on the ground and the head and body shots, it wasn't possible. You want to be aiming more towards the neck for those kind of shots. But from the tests, it was still consistent. It took about 3 shots to kill the bot from about 10 meters away, both with headshots and body shots. So for Road Hog, it fixes a lot of the inconsistencies, but he doesn't lose out on anything. His time to kill is effectively the same, but at a much closer range and aiming for the head, you can get those one-shot kills if you need to. But that's on a bot. As I said, a lot of heroes have different hitboxes. Tracer is very different from Zarya, for example, that is different from Hammond. So individual tests do need to be done. However, this is the interesting thing that comes from Reaper. As I said, he cannot one-shot a target from the range that we talked over. If he was 2 meters away, I stood right in front of him, sure. But at about a 4 to 5 meter range, he couldn't one-shot the target at all, unless again he was sort of aiming for the in-between bit with the neck. We'll talk about how the spread works, because again for Reaper, it looks very, very weird. So not only was he not able to one-shot headshot targets from a 4 meter range, once you get past the sort of 10 meter range and aim for the head, that's where the inconsistencies really start to crop up for Reaper, and this is why he's doing less damage overall and why this is practically a nerf. People have said it requires more skill to aim with him, and I do want to go over that fairly shortly, but check this out. So for Reaper, on the live servers, at about a 10 meter range aiming for the head, he can kill a target in 3 shots. It's the same for the body shot actually. Doesn't really seem to reward hitting the head. But when you get to the PTR, 10 meters away, aiming for the head, it takes 5 shots. It takes 2 more shots on the PTR than it did on the live servers. And for body shots, he does it consistently in 4 instead of 3. Now Ryan, I hear you say, Reaper is a close range hero, he shouldn't be able to do a lot of damage from range, and yeah, that's true. But none of these changes on paper at least look like they benefit Reaper in any fashion. It's not as if at like a 4 meter range, he's killing targets in less shots. It's about the same, unless you're headshotting like we went over. At a 5 meter range, headshots and body shots, it's exactly the same. So this change doesn't really benefit Reaper in any fashion. So what's going on with Reaper's effective range? Well, I'm showing you that on screen now. Just shooting at a wall, you can see how weird the spread is in comparison. You've got this like weird donut shape effect going on. So maybe Hero 29 is just a massive donut and Reaper's going to be the counter to it. But I just don't really like this change. On paper, it looks really good for Reaper and really strong. And in a lot of unique situations, I imagine it's going to be really good. Take Road Hog, for example. These changes on paper don't look like much, but when speaking to Dr. Riku, who we will have on the channel sometime soon, he seems to believe that these changes are actually really, 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 really good. So that's not to say that these changes for Reaper are bad, but I guess they're doing the opposite of what people may have wanted. Talking about all of the overarching changes though, going from the myth-busting fashion, I have seen a lot of comments of people saying, well, it just requires you to aim more with Reaper to do more damage. You can't rely on spread sort of doing all the work for you. It's going to reward you more for being able to sort of headshot or more specifically neck shot people with Reaper than it would on the live servers. And I somewhat agree, because if we look at some of the other changes that have gone through recently, Blizzard are buffing skill heroes. Pharah got changed to be less of a spam in a certain direction, doing a lot of splash damage. Players that have relatively good aim with Pharah can make the most out of the changes with her shot fire being increased, but the damage of splash being lessened. It's almost promoting players to aim a little bit more as opposed to firing at a certain direction and hoping that the splash damage does all the work, in a very similar way to Junkrat. And then you have these changes to Road Hog and Reaper. I think the Reaper changes honestly have just been overlooked, but Road Hog especially I feel will be a really solid pick in that regard. And not only that, you have heroes like Anna, Sombra, Doomfist really popular in the meta that require a lot of skill and require a lot of mechanical aim to make effective use out of them. So I think that this is a conscious decision of Blizzard to try and buff those heroes that are really demanding to get effective use out of them, but also to make some heroes that didn't have a lot of effective use have more based on the changes. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I will link the testing spreadsheet in the description below so you can have a look for yourselves. That's not to say that all of these results are indicative of the state of the game with Reaper, for example. I want to do more testing, but I also kind of wanted to really talk about the core area where I feel that these changes to Reaper are really underperforming. From a distance, it takes longer for him to kill targets. That's fair enough, he's a close range hero, but even stood right in front of a target headshotting him, he can't kill him in comparison to before where he could. And then you compare that to Road Hog, who again has had similar changes. On paper they say that they are the exact same, but you can see that they're very, very different in what they're achieving. So it's not just a case of, oh, Reapers just need to aim more to get more damage done. It's less damage overall for Reaper if you can't aim, lol forehead. That just isn't the case. So we'll have to see what happens here. I'm really interested. Weird changes on the PTR. Buff this and the Doomfist nerf are very, very bizarre. And just before I finished up, I wanted to give a brief shout out to HyperX. They've been part of the channel for quite some time, helping us make content, really supporting us, and it's been great. And they've also been working with some other big names in the world, really. Dele Alli from Tottenham Hotspur, and now Post Malone. We live in a very weird world right now, but it is interesting to be sort of part of that group of people. And it's really good to be. They make some really good stuff, so I do recommend you check out the stuff. All of it is in the description below. So I'm going to leave it here for today. Thank you very much for watching. We have a lot of content coming up over the weekend, talking to some people about these changes and a multitude of different topics. So thanks for watching. Take care. We'll see you then.